And now back to your regular programming.
If you speak better to yourself.
You showed up for probably the dumbest conversation we've ever had on this show.
Let's have that smile again.
Tell me how that happens. Physically should not happen.
Relax.
If you say
Give me as well.
3 times a day, God will line it up.
He's just an absolute hack, and he gets his ass kicked by his teammates every week. It's just terrible.
Welcome back to Hack City. I'm Joe DeLeone. With me is Sean Anderson, 2 former college football players from the University of Rhode Island. We're trying this for the second time. Hopefully the very brief audio issues that resulted in me throwing my headphones against the wall at 11:30 at night are overcome. But my energy is, of course, high, and my frustration was the result of what was an insane week 6. I said this. Good friend Carrington Harrison's show when I did my weekly spot with him on Infinity Sports Network. I said to him, this slate of games on paper is not good. But whenever we assume that the games are not going to be entertaining, some crazy shit happens. And that's exactly what we got from week 6. We watched Vanderbilt upset number 1 Alabama. We watched an overranked number 10 Michigan lose to Washington, an overranked USC team lose to Minnesota, and we just witnessed Tennessee Mike McCarthy their way to a loss against Arkansas. The results of this week are freaking nuts, and we're going to get to some of the biggest headlines. We were going to try and get to Ashton Jeanty's performance today. I don't even know if that's going to come up on the radar today, Sean. I know
he
that
seems evergreen.
Yeah, I know that you're all geeked up to bring him up, and maybe we'll get that opportunity. Before we get into it, can you just share very briefly with our listeners a word from BetOnline?
Yeah, if you are one of the poor saps that was apple picking this weekend,
Losers!
You fell for the trap. We talk about
Get a
trap.
divorce.
We talk about trap games and betting. This was a trap weekend. If you didn't have your ass planted on the couch, letting college football wash over you and betting at BetOnline, the world's most trusted betting platform, and your number one source for everything football. BetOnline has every stat, every matchup, even live odds, spreads to bet on during the games, which I was doing all day. If you weren't doing that, having the couch rot day with college football, then you're a loser. You lost the weekend, and you're going to have an awful October to move forward. It's the blunt truth of it. You should have been at BetOnline. You should be at BetOnline in the $200,000 mega contest, picking 5 games against the spread every week for your chance at weekly prize, a share of $200K. And if you had a good week, like I'm going to do later tonight, Joe, I'm going to the online casino. It was a fun day of betting in college football. I'm going to reward myself with some blackjack, poker, slots. Head to the website today to get in on the action. BetOnline, the game starts here.
I just realized the stratagem is dead now.
Oh my God, I didn't even piece together your stratagem.
So very quickly, very quickly, we're going to get into the games. I think we're going to start with talking about Tennessee and Arkansas. So I had this strategy that was working really well. I started with I think like a $7 bet, and I started chipping away at betting on minus 500 favorites. And every time the bet would hit, I would turn it around and then put that money towards another bet. I was 10 deep, and I put it on fucking Tennessee, and I was up to over $100. I went from $7 to over $100 from taking these stupid bets. God damn it!
You had a nice win streak. I didn't have one wager on Tennessee, Arkansas. Arkansas is a heart attack of a team. Every time they play, it's massive yardage. We've been tracking them all year. Taylor Green goes off. The offense goes off for 700 yards. They still find a way to lose. They don't do anything. You inspecting your damage over there?
Yeah.
They don't do anything on offense, and then they win. It's a crazy bat-s team, but I guess they have that dog in them.
Okay, wait. Let's hop right there first. So we just witnessed Arkansas 19, Tennessee 14. There is so much to unpack from what happened there, because we have kind of a big brain move by Heupel by clearly allowing Arkansas to score in order to preserve time. You get the time back, and then the timeout usage on the final drive, you've got like a 4th and 7 that they were positioned in.
Yeah, it was a mess.
Nico scrambles and runs out of bounds, and the game is over. And then some people were even commenting prior to this, the drive that they had the ball before that, the clock management set them up for failure here. I don't get what the late game decision making was. And it's just one of those weeks, though, this week where we're all high on all of these top programs, and seemingly all of these head coaches, all of these top players forgot how to play this week. That's the first thing that most of this is chalked up to. It's just one of those wonky ass weeks where nobody wants to play up to the standard of the expectation that we believe. I think that before you jump in here, though, I think one of the biggest issues, though, that Tennessee showed here, their interior offensive line play is not good enough for them to finish the season unblemished after this loss. They were completely worked up the middle. Arkansas's defensive tackles were getting straight line shots at Nico the entire game. And for whatever reason, despite all the pressure that was in his face, I don't get why Heupel wasn't trying to be more timely with running the football to alleviate some of that pressure. Am I crazy that it didn't feel like there were any attempted screens in certain situations?
I'm not going to defend the screen, but I understand where you're coming from a scheme standpoint. Spread the defense out.
Bad coaching.
Don't let them keep picking on the same. Don't let them keep going to the same well that is giving them fresh water, and that's what was happening. Tennessee had a legitimate shot at this, which is an embarrassing thing to say for a team versus the previously 3-2 Arkansas team. But you're set up with a minute and some change. You have 2 timeouts at the end of this nuts game. Somehow, miracle. You got a really good quarterback. You have the edge on the skill position players. Nico makes an insane throw, drawing comparisons to one of the best NFL quarterbacks of all time. That was absurd and ridiculous. But you get down to the 25, 36 seconds. That's a timeout. If I have 2 timeouts and I'm saying, how do I want to attack the end zone? Because we need a touchdown, because we're down by 5. Good job, defense. Way to step up, stop the 2 point. I'm calling a timeout with 36 seconds. Instead, they let 16 seconds bleed off the clock, 25 plus yards to go, and you're sitting there letting it drain and drain and drain. It was nuts. What are you saving them for? I know you had the bobbled snap that had to be turned into a run, but still, what were you going to do? You were going to attack once or twice up the middle, hope you get it to the 3, get it to the 10 or 12, and then you still have enough time to get it in the end zone. All route patterns and concepts work from that range.
I'm also partially dumbfounded by the decision to try to run the ball in that situation. You're forcing yourself to take the timeout because you're trying to outthink Arkansas in that situation, and you're trying to catch them off guard. Maybe we'll just waltz right into the end zone and they're not going to be ready, and we'll walk right in. Why did they think that was going to work? Why did they think that was? It doesn't even matter if that would have worked to any level of success. If it's not a touchdown, you're wasting the timeout. You're wasting time. The loss certainly has to be chalked up to bad late game clock management, decision making by Heupel. I come back to, I think that the interior offensive line play was brutal. I don't really, I mean, I can't criticize Tennessee's defense for the way that they played. They only gave up 19 points. I know that Taylor Green had one of his best days for just passing efficiency, and he was a quarterback who was well below 50 a number of games. He played better as a passer. They, for the most part, kept them at bay, and they were bending and not breaking until that final drive when they let them just walk into the end zone in order to get the ball back. It just felt like a complete underperformance by the offense. DeLeone Sampson played out of his mind.
He was a hero today.
The offensive play calling in terms of trying to throw the ball was just all over the place. It was erratic. They couldn't connect on any of these deep shots, and as a result, it made things so much easier to defend. And again, so many pressures up the middle on Nico before he could even read what was happening in front of him. Just a bad game, man.
Yeah, if the defense is getting home, which even if you have a good offensive line, a great offensive line, some games it's just going to happen. They're scheming, they're playing out of their minds. That will happen. And if it's one of those games, you need to be able to adjust and adapt and say, I'm not going to have these 3-man, 4-man deep route concepts. I didn't see in the fourth quarter a lot of plays where there was a nice leak or check down available. It's sitting here, hey, Nico, go boss up and make a big-time throw 30 yards down the field through the air on just about every time with the X and the Y. I really did not like how they weren't attacking the middle. It didn't seem like the Tennessee receivers even had a shot. Arkansas was covering them great. But if you're Tennessee in this situation, make an adjustment. If your quarterback is having less than 3 seconds to get the ball out, Run some routes that take less than 2 seconds to get open. Not all this, hey, we're going to keep on fighting with these dudes in man with their too high. It was a complete disrespect to the offense of where Arkansas is stepping up, and you decide, hey, we're just going to keep on doing what we're doing. It's not good enough. It's not good enough when Arkansas is playing 2 levels above expectation.
One thing, and this is going to bleed into the discussions that we have with some of these other games. I want to move forward to another game shortly. I think that we need to contextualize what a loss like this means now in the 12-team playoff. This applies to Alabama, which I want to get to next. The loss seems really shocking as a result. All these losses that we're talking about today, they just seem very, very shocking to see. But they don't remove these teams from making the playoff like they used to.
Yeah.
Like, we need to remind ourselves this here, that Tennessee's season isn't over. Do they have to not play perfectly, but play as consistently as possible against the toughest games on their schedule? Yes. What this eliminates is the ability to have a misstep against the top, difficult, most hardest opponents that you're going to face the rest of the year.
Alabama in 2 weeks,
Right.
Georgia in 5 weeks.
Right. You need to.
Tennessee can't be a 3-loss team. They can't be.
That's the whole point. You can't be a 3-loss team. You have to now win one of those football games, which Tennessee is good enough to. I don't know, man. It's such a weird landscape to look at with the way that I'm sounding like Rudy Reyes right now when I'm talking. I can't stop thinking of him. I'm like bumbling through words because I'm running off of no sleep and it's 11:30. It's a ridiculous forward look for how the playoff is going to look. And to talk about Alabama, I don't think that we can also jump to the conclusion that their season is completely over. I said this a lot on Ruffino and Joe. I said that I really believed that if there was a team that was going to have a complete emotional letdown after they expended all of their energy playing against Georgia last week, that they were going to show up and they were not going to play anywhere near the same level. Did they make some of the big highlight plays like they had to Ryan Williams late in the game to get back into it? Absolutely. Did the offensive line play like dog ass and make a ton of mistakes? Yeah, that was a big reason why. The defense didn't tackle, they didn't rally. Diego Pavia, who we have constantly highlighted as a headache for defenses, they could not rally and stop him, and they allowed any branch off of any time that he was running the football for any of these option plays that were incorporated in the play calling. It was impossible to keep up with him, and they were not coming down hard. They were not playing good, sound, technical, contain, good, smart football. None of that. All of it went out the window. You can't take a break in the SEC, even against freaking Vanderbilt.
You know what? This Tennessee loss is going to sting so much more because Alabama had you had a buffer. You had Alabama taking an early freak loss, and you dropped one also. And credit to Vanderbilt. Tim Beck called an incredible game. All the upset, the goalpost being torn down. You have to highlight what Alabama didn't do. They didn't contain well. Jalen Milroe had a good game, not a great game. A pick, a fumble, one touchdown.
The pick wasn't his fault. It was just like a crazy barnyard bounce that didn't go his way.
But a lot of the things that I didn't like Alabama doing was only 6 targets to Ryan Williams, who is, you can make a real legitimate argument for, the most dynamic offensive player in the country. 3 catches, 82 yards, and a glorious touchdown. A touchdown where me and Joe had to look at each other and say, did he just do it again?
Yeah.
Is that body control even possible for a human? It's an unbelievable upset because, and for me also, it doesn't sting without Saban there. People kind of want to root for DeBoer. I kind of want to root for DeBoer. He's a likable coach. I like what he's doing with the program. He has these guys fighting hard and kicking Georgia's ass after having to fill the biggest shoes that we could remember in college football. And he gets this team up and they drop a goofy one to Alabama or to Vanderbilt. Embarrassing. It's you cannot help but be embarrassed for Alabama.
So my thing with Alabama, and this is something that I'm sure many aren't going to be fans of, I think it's his first year. I think it's unfair to criticize Kalen DeBoer for losing that game in his first season. If they lost to Georgia and they came into this game and they lost to Vanderbilt, we'd be having a very, very different discussion. The peak of capability of what Kalen DeBoer can do at Alabama is visibly there. Like we literally, quite literally saw it last week.
Yeah.
We couldn't have visualized it more. Beating one of the best teams in the country, a team that has been a difficult hurdle for Alabama recently and has always been a tough out whenever they faced them. To go in year one and to beat them is a huge accomplishment. To come back this week and your team to not be focused, even though you tried to get them focused, but you failed to do so, yeah, it's a huge negative. It's a huge problem. That loss 100%, 1,000% falls onto Womack, the defensive coordinator, and on Kalen DeBoer for not getting his guys right enough, and he clearly was going too easy on them in practice. But my whole point to say this is that Alabama team is still great. They're still going to go on to the playoff. They're still going to probably win one of their other top games, and I know that they've got a bit of a tough schedule. I'm sure that they're capable of beating Alabama or beating Tennessee when they face them. They're going to beat Missouri because we saw that Missouri played like a
Fraud watch.
dead body today, which we'll get touched on probably more towards the end of today's show. They still have life. In this new landscape, like I just said a second ago, where one loss does not kill you, it does not end your season. It looks terrible. It's embarrassing. We all understand that. Alabama fans, you should feel embarrassed. As a Notre Dame fan who was embarrassed by the NIU loss, yeah, it sucks. It completely sucks. You're getting mocked endlessly. But you shouldn't act like that this is the end of the world.
The ship isn't sinking.
And my whole thing that's going to happen this week by many people is that you can't listen to all the praise that went towards DeBoer last week for the way that they played against Georgia and then turn around and then say that he is inept and incapable because they lost to Vanderbilt. There is a middle ground that you are unwilling to seek out that is there. You just don't want to look for it and pay attention to it.
Yeah, I am not bailing on Alabama this year. They are tangibly a great team. You can see them. Jalen Milroe is an exceptional college football quarterback. Very, very strong, good. I think they could sweep the rest of their schedule. They could clear Tennessee. They could clear Missouri, LSU, Auburn, Oklahoma. They could clear them all. And then they're sitting as a one-loss team, which a lot of people wouldn't be shocked by. And I wouldn't be. I still think the bones are there. This is one of these freaky, drunk college football weeks that we should all be thankful that we get to see. It's a fantastic day for football, just because you get some traditional crazy upsets. But the rationality, Joe, you're speaking to and asking SEC fans to have some, that's a little tough. That's a big ask, pal. But for the few that do, keep your head on. You'll be fine. Alabama's a really good team. I think that if you hold the faith and you just say, that was a weird one, we didn't really get locked in and we're overlooking Vanderbilt, which is not the first time a team has overlooked Vanderbilt. And for the most part, Vanderbilt hasn't had a Diego Pavia. Vanderbilt has been a team that you could look past and just beat off of pure talent, but they're better this year. Clark Lee is finally finding his groove. And the offense, maybe you just did not pay it. The scout team wasn't giving them good enough looks of a Pavia read option. Yeah, stop the read option. It's not that hard. Key in on a quarterback, key in on the running back.
Yeah, and it's not like you're going against Lamar Jackson. You're going against Diego Pavia.
It's Diego Pavia.
It's all will. It's all attention to detail. It's focus. It's being prepared in the week of practice. It's not getting duped out by moves made by Pavia. All that shit. It's simple defense. If you're Alabama and the athletes that are roaming around that defense should be able to stop them.
And that's cheating eyes in the backfield because a lot of the big clutch up plays for Vanderbilt, it was misdirection. And that's because Alabama was taking them lightly all throughout the game. They didn't have to worry about, I don't have to worry about this tight end that looks like he's blocking that slips to the flat and converts a 3rd and 10. This won't matter because we're just going to march down and beat them and they're not going to score. Oh, they scored on us. Oh, I don't have to worry about this wide receiver getting past me. I'm at Alabama. He's at Vanderbilt. He could never be. Oh, he just caught one over my head. What is going on here? And now you're in a real fight. Now you're in the football game, and Vanderbilt was locked in from minute 1 to minute 60. Alabama got locked in at about minute 45.
Just terrible way to finish. And I mean, it isn't like that's the stupidest part is that like you see that they were dicking around most of this game, and then it kind of came down to oh wait, we need to get focused. We can't lose this.
But the thing is, Diego Pavia, just king, I guess, getting in your head. You know what? I root for him. I had I had a bit of a rant a couple weeks ago about why he's good for Vanderbilt, and I still stay to that testament of Diego Pavia is a big meathead quarterback with a lot of swagger and balls. Vanderbilt hasn't had that since Jay Cutler. And I don't even know if Jay Cutler was as ballsy as Pavia was, which is crazy to say. But his post-game interview, doesn't care who's interviewing him. I'm going to swear and say Vandy is effing turnt tonight, and I'm gonna just go find my family and run around like a madman. I loved it. It was elite scenes from an awesome upset. You got to root for that dude. It's fantastic.
There's not much to talk about with the Texas A&M Missouri game, but it has to be discussed. Missouri was ranked number 9, and it felt like that was days ago when this game was played at the beginning of the day. It's so overshadowed by everything that happened today that they got worked by Texas A&M 41-10. There was zero will to stop Le'Veon Moss. There was zero will to stop any of the Texas A&M receivers in those contested situations. My biggest thing with this, and especially applies to the performance by Connor Weigman, was that we always overreact to the outcome of one game, especially when it comes to bad performances. So everybody was saying after the Notre Dame game, oh, this kid is not as good as everyone hyped him up to be in the offseason. He's not a first-round draft prospect. He probably shouldn't even be the starter. They should keep Marcel Reed in. I was a big supporter of Marcel Reed because he fit within the play style that Colin Klein was looking for as the offensive coordinator. But he showed up and he whooped ass, like completely worked that Missouri secondary. And the other part with this too is Missouri completely bailed on the run game, just stopped trying, and that Texas A&M front bodied, smoked, blew past that weak-ass Missouri offensive line. If there is for sure one team this weekend, I think is cooked, it's Missouri. That was a head-on-head matchup, ranked-on-ranked team that you need to show up on the road ready to play. I chalk up these other performances we're talking about right now with Tennessee and Arkansas and Vanderbilt, Alabama. If you're smart enough to realize how things work in locker rooms and stepping into trap games, those are trap games. You played down to your opponent and you played like crap.
Yeah.
Missouri, on the other hand, they had the situation of dealing with a scrappy Texas A&M team that is trying to stay afloat and relevant in the SEC standings. They're going to come out swinging, and they had absolutely no energy and no juice.
I'll say congrats to you. This strengthens up Notre Dame's resume, at least for this week. That Texas A&M team looked legit. The D-line was great. The defensive backs were great. Brady Cook, 13 for 31. Hey, give me a stat line that better exemplifies that you abandoned the run. 186 yards and a tud. 13 for 31. I give so much credit, and I love this bit that we got to see. And obviously the media outlets run with it, and it gets played out very quickly. But Willie the Third, the blanket game, send it on over to Theo Weiss.
Well, so
That's
I don't.
Awesome.
Apparently, that was not him who did it. He tweeted out that it was not him.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I don't know if that was a fan. I don't know if that was a booster.
Oh, regardless.
Yeah.
Fantastic bit. Even if they shook hands and said, hey, bro, that wasn't me. I just hope we have a good game. I know that's how it's going to go, but
That didn't happen. We both know that absolutely did not happen.
Because if you call yourself the blanket, then
Terrible DB name, by the way.
that's
The
great,
worst. That is the softest DB name ever. I hope he doesn't go around telling people I'm the blanket.
Oh, I hope he does. It's better than like the tarpaulin or the sheet or anything else. What else
The
covers?
what?
The tarpaulin. You don't know that tarps are short for tarpaulin?
First of all, no, I did not know that.
Yeah.
Second of all, to name yourself anything that covers anything, there's a reason why nobody has ever used that moniker.
I'm starting to like it.
You can't call yourself something that's soft. You can't. You can't do it.
I want to be called Sean the Quilt Anderson from henceforth.
Yeah, you're soft as baby shit.
Oh,
Yeah, you
I'm
go
so
ahead.
sure.
Yeah, you can call yourself.
I'm so
That's what you're telling me by that.
That means I cover my bases and I'm nice and heavy, like quilts are. Yeah, Missouri fraud watch, and here's another thing that hurts them. If you're on fraud watch and you get blown out, the noon slate is the worst place to be because you're the first action that everyone gets to see. Everyone was fired up from the Friday night football. They want to see a good game. You lose by 31 as a ranked team to Texas A&M, that is going to, highlight and accentuate your badness that day. Whereas if you didn't do that, it's a non-game that we're talking about. because we have so much bonkers that happen at 4 p.m. slate, 7 p.m. slate. But no, you were first to the scene. First there, getting blown out. Awful.
Yeah, they got their backs blown out. There was not... I come back to what I mentioned at the start of this, is that whenever you're on skates in a game and you're already down by a couple of scores, or you already are losing momentum, it boggles my mind when some of these teams just completely give up trying to run the football. Nate Noel and Marcus Carroll were two of the most productive running backs in the country to this point. And you have 10 carries for Nate Noel for only 30 yards and 8 for 26 for Marcus Carroll.
It's awful.
Complete bailout. Now, it says that Brady Cook had 11 carries. I'm willing to bet that a large number of those. Yeah, there were 6 sacks from this Texas A&M defense. Nick Scourton, welcome to the scene. We were waiting for you to emerge as this insanely productive, dominant player that we were expecting. This was the breakout game that you whooped that Missouri offensive line, and it freed everybody else up. My lack of faith in Missouri really, really does stem from their offensive line play, because that was Charmin soft. There was no step-up stop. There were no big plays that I felt like that offensive line created a clean pocket for Brady Cook when he needed time to operate. It was every time the ball was snapped, collapsed pocket. Ball was snapped, collapsed pocket. I want to look at the all-22 of this game. I don't want to speak.
You won't want to look at it. It's sloppy.
Well,
it's sloppy all around.
I won't be able to. I don't want to speak to this without knowing, but it felt like most of the pressures were really only 4- and 5-man pressures. Like, they weren't sending excessive heat. They were just dropping back, trusting their coverage, and they knew that they were going to get home. Missouri might have one of the weaker offensive lines of the top half teams in the SEC that were in the ranked conversation. They're definitely not a playoff team. Like, I am so freaking out after the way that they played today. They are not a playoff team.
Yeah, it doesn't look like it. Their attention to detail today was really rough. I know they had a big called back touchdown on an eligible man down the field, which it feels like they're calling more of this year, and it's been a progressively increased call. It's frustrating. I understand, as a former offensive lineman, being handcuffed to not go down the field. You have an internal clock. 5 seconds has passed. All right, can I go block someone else now? It's tough. The big Luther Burden touchdown, that may have kept Missouri in it, but that was so deflating given how sloppy that they were playing. They didn't have a chance. Missouri, not a playoff team. I'm sympathetic with you. I have a brief one for you. I saw before the game, I think Nagy tweeted out a Nick Scourton comp that I didn't agree with. He said the closest that he could picture a comp with Scourton was Keon White.
Ooh.
I didn't like that.
Because Keon White's not very good.
Well, I had Keon White as like very long, athletic defensive end, where Scourton is spin move, stout, incredibly strong.
My 2 problems with that is, one, Keon White has not been very productive. He has been all hype and no impact. And second of all, the reason why that comparison is being made is that they're both super thick. They're both really thick. But Scourton's a lot more explosive in short areas. He's got a much better bend, and he actually brings to fruition his traits. Keon White's just big and athletic, and then he's one of those dudes that just just moves around, and you think like, oh, once he figures it out, man, he's going to be great.
He's got 4 sacks this year. I know it's taken a little bit, but I mean, he's the only player on their defense.
Let's jump to Ole Miss in South Carolina. This is where we come to, Sean, with everything that we're discussing with the outcomes of these games. And again, there's going to be so many people within the discussion of this week that are overreacting and freaking out to the Alabama loss and to the Tennessee loss. You should be reacting. You should be critical of those teams, like we were critical to Ole Miss last week.
Oh yeah.
But this is a week-by-week season. This is a get better every single week type of a sport where you have opportunities to improve. This isn't basketball. This isn't baseball where you're playing a million games and some of them mean nothing. You need to show signs of improvement. And when you have a shit game like they did against Kentucky, it doesn't mean that their season is completely done and over with the 12-team playoff. A lot of redundancy on the talking points that we're having today, because it all comes back to the same crap that's going to get talked about for the next 4, 5, 6 weeks until the end of the season.
Oh, we're in the thick of it, brother.
We are in the thick of it. We need to stop using jargon and idioms now.
Oh, yo,
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, I every
Oh,
time
we're
we
just
every
straight talk. We
every
can't-
time we use one, it makes me think of where.
That's why we can't go down that rabbit hole.
Yeah.
Oh,
Stop.
there I go.
Stop. Stop. What I was trying to say though is that Ole Miss showed us today in an expected situation where a lot of people were calling for the South Carolina upset on the road against a physical defensive line and in a tough rushing attack that South Carolina had. Ole Miss played exactly how they were supposed to play against Kentucky and how they should have played every single week. Their defensive line was extremely dominant. They got after Lenore Sellers. They didn't completely shut down the run game, but they made plays against the run when they needed to. They didn't allow any yards after any catches. They didn't allow anyone to break loose. The secondary played a lot better. But more importantly, offensively, they played so much more explosively because they committed to running the ball early. They were much more balanced instead of last week where it was snap the ball, throw it, and just freaking pray. It was the stupidest coaching decisions by Lane Kiffin. But he realized he overthought things and he made the adjustment. It's going to keep coming down to this every single week whenever there is an upset loss or a bad game. And we're going to keep getting these because this is the most bonkers college football season that we've seen in our lifetimes. Teams are going to be given the ability to bounce back. I'm not yet out on Ole Miss. It's okay to be critical of Lane Kiffin for dropping a game like that and failing to meet expectations and playing up to the degree of what he was supposed to. But the ability to improve, it deserves to be recognized.
Yeah, it was a different team this week than last week. They did address some of the issues that Twitter was pointing out about this Ole Miss team. I don't think they're reading that. I think they just are seeing the patterns. What didn't we do? Why weren't we successful? But like Antoine Wells Jr., welcome. 3 catches, 97 this week. You know, you have Trey Harris, who's just a balling ass baller on the outside. But they're getting more people involved. Wells was a ghost last week. He's kind of been a ghost this season. Everyone's talking about Portal King. Well, now Portal King kind of showed up with one of his big additions. Dart played fine. Completion percentage just over 50. Don't love it. But that's what I'm going to get with Jackson Dart. I'm not expecting him to be a Heisman favorite anymore. That's done for. But if Ole Miss can put together a game where the opponent has one person rushing for over 4 yards and they only had 4 carries, then that is a really good performance. If they could shut down dual threat quarterback Lenore Sellers, whoever else they have on the schedule, locked in and not giving any breathing room to a worse team, which is all Ole Miss needs to do. If they have a big crazy game against a big team and piss down their leg, then okay, that's expected. But on the flip side of that coin, it's expected for Ole Miss, led by Lane Kiffin, to do games to win games like this, 27-3. No points given up in the second half. You're coasting. You just need to get past Beamer ball and succeed, and they did. I think I saw South Carolina do some stupid fake punt in the first quarter. It was disgusting.
God, the fourth down decision making in this game was nauseating. I do recall that there was a lot by both teams, and especially by Beamer in this. And I've been very critical of Beamer. I'm not a fan of Beamer. We're not going to dive into that. 6 sacks though, dude, for this Ole Miss defensive line. Like they really showed up. Jared Ivey had a huge game. He had 2 sacks himself. Walter Nolan had 2 sacks. Those 2 guys are expected to show up and have big games. Princely Umami-Ellen was not available for this one, but if he comes back and you're able to wreck house like this, getting momentum after playing a really bad South Carolina offensive line is what you need to get back on track. This all does really play into, and the conversation I think that we should shift to here, Sean. I have no idea who fits into the top 10, and I think the more important question of who's the best team in the country at this moment, there's no answer. There is zero right answer to that question. I tweeted this out. If you're at the bar with your buddies or a friend of a friend, and somebody says to you, this team's the best team in the country, clearly they're going to win a national title, that person is a fucking liar. That person has no idea what they're talking about. You can't tell me after 6 weeks you've seen enough from all of these teams to know this team has it all figured out. Because let's paint the picture really quickly. Alabama just lost to Vandy. Ability to stay focused for games where they need to be. That question mark is been built up, and their inability to defend rushing quarterbacks is now there. We move to Georgia. They dropped the game against Alabama. They've got problems with the run game. They got problems with their offensive line and injuries. Ohio State hasn't played anybody.
No.
So we don't know the level of degree of talent that they have until next week when they play Oregon. Oregon looked great against Michigan State. They also haven't freaking played anybody. They did beat Boise State with Ashton Jeanty, but they also have not fucking played anybody. Penn State works UCLA, but does it in a very bland and boring manner.
They were 30-point favorites, and they didn't cover against UCLA.
Right.
It was free money because we know who Penn State is. We know if Penn State could make the playoff in an expanded playoff only, though.
Texas beats a Michigan team that just lost to Washington that also clearly was overranked. USC shouldn't be in the conversation because they couldn't beat Minnesota. I could have told you that Miller Moss would have thrown a game-breaking pick to close out the game. Nobody wanted to listen to me. Nobody wanted to listen to me that I said that the guy's not very good. We're not going to go there, though. There is no clear answer of who the top team is. If I was asked this, though, I would lean Ohio State. I would argue the Iowa win today is more impressive than Texas's win over Michigan.
I lean Texas. Iowa is not a serious team. Iowa got a first down rushing on a fourth and short attempt, and then took a timeout and re-punted the ball away after getting the first down.
Was that today?
Yes. I was
wait. But here's where I'm pushing back on this before you continue. Iowa's only loss is to a really good Iowa State team that's probably going to win the Big 12.
I'm just saying here, Iowa does not play up well to ranked opponents. Elliot Clough had an insane tweet today. I think Iowa's been outscored like 127-0 against
awesome.
top 10 opponents or ranked opponents. So they are not. Iowa's going to be Iowa. They're going to beat up on any team in the Big 12 that doesn't have or Big 10 that doesn't have a great quarterback. That's what they're going to be. They're going to be shoddy on offense. Kate McNamara had a couple good drives though, where it looked like he was dotting. Shocking. But for the most part, I'm not respecting an Iowa win. That just tells me that you can outlast a team. Texas, uber talented.
That Michigan win is so mediocre now. It is so clearly mediocre, that Michigan win.
To your point, though, I now am being forced to pick Texas. Last week it would have been Alabama.
But you
before
don't
it
need
would
to
have
be
been
forced to
Georgia.
pick Texas. I think that the easier pick in this situation is Ohio State, because you have the cushion of saying, well, they haven't played anybody but they've beaten the crap out of everybody that they've played. You have that little bit of cushion to say, and again, that Iowa win is much nicer than you're willing to give it credit for.
I just,
Michigan shouldn't be ranked, by the way.
Michigan, done
Take
with
them out.
Michigan.
USC shouldn't be ranked.
No
one should be ranked. We should just have a number one team, and then it's just a list.
Oh,
all 130. It's alphabetized.
Oh, this is your revolution?
Yeah,
your
revolution.
Soapbox? Yeah.
I want a alphabetized list where it says T133. Everyone's tied for 133rd in the country. No one's good. Everyone's bad. Everyone has issues.
You know what? You pitched me an idea of stats or rankings that we could develop with the Hack City brand. I think T133 is the first launching point that we could use. But, Ohio State, sleepy first 6 weeks. All right, they haven't played dick. But next week, you get Oregon. And then they get a testy...
I didn't like the way you said that word, by the way.
Then they get a testy Nebraska team, and then Penn State. So all these questions that are going to be cast to Ohio State should be answered pretty promptly.
Here's my pitch that's going to play bigger into the chaos of the season. I am calling now. Ohio State's going to lose on November the 9th to Purdue.
Oh, what?
That's what's going to happen. That's going to be I'm looking to see what the bonkers loss is going to be, and that's the bonkers loss.
It would be Indiana. It would be Indiana over Purdue.
Wait, I need to see. Because Indiana would make too much sense, because Indiana is probably going to be ranked at the end of the season. So, if a ranked Indiana team beats Ohio State, I just don't think that's going to happen. Ohio State's going to show up pissed off and be like, these schlubs think that they can take us and they can show up. Purdue's the game where they show up not paying attention, just thinking it's Purdue. They gave up 66 points to Notre Dame.
You got some balls on you.
And it's 18-15, and something just god awfully wrong when happened.
I got crucified for predicting a Purdue upset against a worse team.
Because you picked You picked them to upset Notre Dame, and they lost 66-6. You couldn't have been more wrong. That's why you got criticized.
No. I was criticized when I initially picked it, and again, my rationale for that was if Notre Dame had
Wear it
won
on your face.
66 to
Wear it on
6
your
versus
face.
No,
Wear it on your face.
Notre Dame.
No.
Notre Dame
Wear it on your face.
blew their game a week too early. It would have happened to Purdue.
Here's my pitch for Texas's bonkers loss. November 9th, the same weekend.
Oh, wow.
Florida. Billy Napier has been fired for multiple weeks, and DJ Lagway wills them to an upset victory. That's going to be my pitch to play into the absurdity of this batshit ass season.
I can't even rationalize the thought of Florida beating Texas. There's no.
I'm obviously
I know
not
it's
saying
a
that
bonkers pick.
For anyone who's like jumping in the comments like, why do you think they're losing to Florida? I'm like saying it jovially. It is. If this season is crazy as this week was, something like that is going to happen in the next 6 weeks.
I'm going to sub in a different team, a team that we saw do it. Vandy.
No. You're not understanding. You're not understanding.
Vandy doesn't just get one this year; they get two.
You're not getting the bit, man. The bit is.
I get the bit.
Vanderbilt is going to quite possibly shit their pants the rest of the way. They lost to Georgia State. We need. To
I know they lost to Georgia. I know that.
They're not. If you're Vanderbilt, you got one of those in you. You got one of those in you.
Bonkers season. Vandy knocks down two number ones in the same year, and we have to force them into the playoff. That's what happens.
All right, now you're just playing it up too much.
Now we're doing the bonkers.
Speaking of bonkers, Ashton Jeanty had a crazy game to continue what might be a Heisman finalist season. So far this year, he has rushed for 1,031 yards and 16 touchdowns. I love when you put stats in here, but then like the one thing that I need, which is the numbers that he had today, I thought they were in there.
Pardon me.
His numbers today, though, were 13 carries. He only had a mere 13. They said, Ashton, no more for you. You take a break. We're going to put 62 on Utah State for 186 and 3 touchdowns. He had a long of 75. He had multiple long rushing touchdowns. Jalen Milroe might have not completely knocked himself out of the race, but he created an opening for Ashton Jeanty, and he certainly created an opening for Travis Hunter to build up some ground. If he continues on this pace, and it's a little hard to pitch this for running backs because it's a very high volume position, although he's not getting very many carries.
I think he's still under 100 on the year.
If he is able to get to 2,000 rushing yards, and he's able to go over, God, he's got 16 touchdowns.
Yeah.
He might, the Barry Sanders record's 34, 32.
I'm not certain, but I would love to talk about the previous running back Heisman winner if you want to check the Barry stats.
It's Derrick Henry
Yeah.
You have written down here 1,900 for 23 in 2015. I mean, that's attainable. He's already on pace to pass that.
Yes, he's tracking at an unreal pace right now. I understand that why you bench Jeanty. I get it. But for the sport of football, what he's doing to save the college running back position, we've seen running backs vaulted into the Heisman, forced into the Heisman conversation when they weren't really there. This dude is legit. And he is right now a Heisman finalist. And I think he's 1 or 2. I think it's right after this week. It's him at 1A, 1B, him and Travis Hunter. And we'll see what quarterback decides to turn it on for the second half of the season. But I'm not considering Milroe. I mean, we can invite him to New York. That's fine. He's done his work so far. He had an insane win where he played his ass off against Georgia. That is Heisman worthy. That's Heisman nomination worthy. But what Ashton Jeanty is doing, it's unfathomable. Is he in baby oil? Is he in Vaseline running in the field? Why can nobody get a grab cloth? It's not even do a form tackle on the guy. That's impossible. It's not even wrap up on his ankles. Could you get a piece of the jersey? It's untouched burst. It's shiftiness. It's elite vision. And I'm glad he's getting the buzz. It still doesn't feel like enough for how well he's been running the ball.
The craziest part as well is that the remaining stretch of the schedule, he's going up against a bunch of G5 schlubs. There is no Alabama looming. There is no Ohio State looming that is going to stop him. You know, Kyle Monungai is having a great season, who's the Rutgers running back.
Yeah.
his path is going to probably get stymied against. I think they play USC is like a good example. Like whenever they have to go up against a tougher opponent, he's probably going to have a slower game. JT is going to blow his way through what is a very, very weak schedule, an extremely weak schedule. None of these goofballs can tackle him. They all look like rental car salesmen trying to keep up with him. It's one of those situations where you just know this kid's special. This kid's potentially a first-round pick. Untackleable is the only way to describe him, and he's not going to face anybody who's going to be able to tackle him.
Oh, though, how many yards do you think he would, if he was going to be at Boise when Tarleton gets accepted into the Mountain West? How many yards would he have ran against the Tarleton State?
They would have taken him out after 4 carries, and he would have had 200 yards.
No one's ever lauded the Mountain West for having the elite defenses of the G5, but make an effort. Make it look a little bit better. I'm waiting for a team to stand up and hold them to 150-2. That would be great. And you know what?
It's not happening.
I would actually like to see a Mountain West team do that and hang a banner in their stadium that says, held Ashton Jeanty to under 200 yards and under 3 touchdowns. That's what the celebration should be.
All right, before we get out of here, because it's much later than we usually go, and I want to get these segments up, this is probably the worst joke that Ron could have dropped in them. What is this?
He's on one, man.
Ron, that's terrible. That's a bad joke.
You don't like Sean the Charmine? That's why Charmin doesn't have an E, pal. It's all good. Love you, Ron.
Oh, I love you, Ron, for tuning in. All right, at Joe DeLeone at Anderson Radio. We're going to be back on Monday night at 8:30 Eastern Time. Thanks for tuning in late with us. Hit the subscribe button, 5-star review on audio. We'll talk to you folks later.